Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I am here to answer your questions about hacking, security research, programming, pretty much anything you want to ask that's legal on the stream live today. So if you are joining us, it is good to see you. Hey, I see actually a bunch of people I know already. Hello, James. Hello, SAQ, and everyone else. Good to, and yes, thank you. This is a nice Varonis hat. There was a box of them at the last conference I went to, and I made sure I would have one for every stream from now on. So yes, I am all Varonised up today, and I have a lot to talk about coming up with Tour Camp. So I know I've mentioned this, it is rapidly coming up. If you are going, please let me know in the stream because I'm very interested in finding other people who are also going to this camp. But yeah, no, it's turning out to be a little more exciting than we anticipated because now it might rain. So a lot of you know that I go to many hacker conferences, and I've been invited to EMF Camp, which is kind of the European version of this, many times, and I haven't been able to make it over because it's kind of expensive. It's kind of difficult to make it out there. But this time it's actually happening and in my own kind of back door in the Pacific Northwest. So I am excited to go back to the San Juan Islands. I spent a lot of time there as a kid. And Tour Camp is going to be an outdoor camp where you set up your own tents. You kind of create your own infrastructure. And it's cool because there's no limitation of like a conference space that's like a rented space or whatever where everything's already set up. You literally build the space spontaneously every year, and it's always different. So this is going to be really cool. I'm super excited, but it seems to be that the best way of getting noticed here is blinky lights and other things that attract people. So I've been on a mission to find out all the interesting, cool, like blinky things that I can create on a short time frame, and also that can survive going over the ferry because it's out on an island in a cramped car. So that's a lot of requirements, obviously. And I think I might have finally found one that still looks really good that would be transportable. And I want to get your feedback on this because I think it would be really cool if we could pull it off. So of all the different projects I've seen, one of the coolest I've seen is this ping pong ball wall that uses each individual ping pong ball as a pixel. So I'm going to share this here. This is by BitLooney. And when I was going through all the different diffusers that you can make from a regular NeoPixel strip, I have to say this one is probably my favorite. You can even make relatively small ones that still look incredibly cool by using these ping pong balls. Now, there are obviously some limitations here. There's only certain types of, that's probably my favorite demo, is linking a camera to it. Yeah, of all the things you can do on a budget to make a NeoPixel strip look even cooler, I think that possibly ping pong balls are the perfect diffuser. They create these individual cells, and otherwise you have a lot of challenges when making a like large display with NeoPixels. Now, why even do this, right? Well, for one, look at this. This is cute. But for another, if you're trying to attract people at a booth, or if you're trying to make something really cool and interesting, then like you need to kind of go big. Like in this case, I think trying to make a large NeoPixel sign sounds like a good idea until you start messing with diffusers and find out that there's actually not a lot of materials that look good when you're trying to create a sign or like a giant screen. So in this case, instead of just making kind of a colorful, perfectly diffused screen, BitLooney is making individual pixels using these ping pong balls to isolate the color from each individual NeoPixel. And I think that is so incredibly cool. So for Tour Camp, I think as of last night, I'm planning to make a glue stick and ping pong ball together screen using NeoPixels that we'll probably make and test here and then bring over and make a giant screen. So I'm thinking of making it like a ticker screen where you can send messages to it at the camp using LoRa. And if you just use CircuitPython or Arduino to set up like the default LoRa configuration, we'll probably list the specs and just send a message. It'll receive it and scroll it out over this giant screen. So I'm really passionate about doing hacker art projects. And I think that this is just one of the many ways that hackers figure out how to make blinky lights just really delightful and a point for starting conversations. On the other end of this, whoa, I just punched the mic. On the other end of the spectrum, there is this incredible project by Geek Mom that kind of, instead of making a giant screen with ping pong balls and taking like a bunch of almost waste components and turning it into a screen, this is the opposite. This is deliberately creating a really delightful and eye-catching piece of clothing And I used to work in peripheral to the fashion industry. So I got to talk to a lot of designers about how they were integrating technology into their designs to make it more interesting or more useful. And I think this is a really, I don't know, just perfect example of how a little bit of engineering and a little bit of blinky lights can take something regular and make it just look incredible. So my friend Angelina also, I know, made her prom dress kind of light up with NeoPixels and did an incredible job of it. I wish I had a picture to share it. Maybe I will. I'll tweet it out later. But this sort of use of I don't know, just like eye-catching blinky lights inspires me to want to make something myself. So stay tuned for what I actually end up doing. Yeah, I'm going to try to maybe not do anything as large as this, but at least make something interactive and fun for this outdoor conference. Now, that being said, it's probably going to rain. So whether or not a bunch of ping pong balls half full of water, like hot glued to a foam core board outside is going to survive for very long, I guess we'll find out. But I am excited to try this out. So yeah, if you're the type of hacker who likes blinky lights, which is most of us, then stay tuned for some more fun updates on what I'm doing to stand out at this camp and get people to come by and learn about all sorts of stuff at our camp. So we also had all of our tour camp reservations undone yesterday. So I got to spend a frantic day going to Walmart, picking up temporary tents that are probably going to fall apart in the wind. So if you want to see us desperately trying to ride out the potential rain inside like $99 Walmart tents, then please come to tour camp, say hello, and attend one of our workshops, or find us at the night market. Just the fact that it's called the night market virtually guarantees that we'll be there. But there's a lot of interesting lore around this conference that I'm only just learning, and the night market is one of them. So, all right, so want to take a look at the comments since I've just been like excited about tour camp. And all right, so we have our number one WPA3 Enjoyer SAQ asking about any news about the ESP32 WPA3 vulnerabilities. I will say that in the last stream, we figured out that there is the possibility of creating a WPA3 access point on an ESP32 device. That means you can take one of these small little affordable microcontrollers. This one is the ESP32S3, but you could take a microcontroller like the one that I have here, and you could use it to create a WPA3 network, connect a device, and then attack it as your own personal lab. And I think that that is really useful because not everybody has the money to go and buy like a WPA3 router to start doing some like basic vulnerability testing. Now, I have been listening. I'm always listening. But the tool that I wanted to share this week was actually shared by another user on Twitter. So I was talking, no, not that one, this one, Blunderbuss. So I am really interested in checking this out more because our good friend on Twitter, who I'm curious, no. Okay, cool. Well, don't worry about that then. Our friend on Twitter, who will be named later, mentioned that they were able to do some WPA3 auditing with this tool. And, you know, I like to listen to our audience. So unless this is like a backdoor that a North Korean spy is trying to get me to install again, then I will check this out in a virtual machine on a computer I don't care about. But the idea would be looking for WPA3 vulnerabilities, getting familiar with them and testing things out a little bit. So if you're looking for a tool to try out on our newly discovered WPA3 enabled microcontroller, then perhaps you could use a cheap microcontroller you have sitting on your shelf and this tool to maybe take a whack, because it's made by Whacker, get it? At WPA3 hacking. So I know there's a lot of interest here. I'm curious to hear your feedback on this tool. And if anybody wants to run it on their computer first, let me know if it starts smoking or shuts down or something. My number one least favorite thing about doing the Nullbyte show was basically worrying about whether or not I was infecting my computer at any particular time. That I was trying out a tool. Like I would always have people like, hey, try out my Python tool. It's really great. And then I would like, be like, yeah, great. And then I would like download it and like give it to VirusTotal, and it would be like, do not run this program. Don't run it ever. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'd run it anyway, just in a virtual machine, just for fun. But you shouldn't do that too much. So I haven't done as much of the tool stuff, like especially on my work computer. But I have a throw around ThinkPad now that I feel comfortable trying out Blunderbuss. So if you're a Blunderbuss enjoyer, please let me know, like if you've tried it out. And I would be interested to hear whether or not other people would vouch for it. Although, who knows? All right, here's a great question. When will you be back on Nullbyte? So everything is always subject to change. Like there's no guarantees in life, right? However, I will say that as of right now, I'm working on recording a new Nullbyte episode that is going to be on the Nullbyte channel as far as I know and as far as everything is going. So yeah, normally I would be like, oh, the channel got sold. It got sold to someone, I don't know if it's going to go on, but it actually seems like it's going forward this time. So you might actually see me, Angelina, and our new friend Davis on the Nullbyte channel relatively soon, working on some really cool stuff. So Laura is one of the things that we worked on. I got to wrap a really cool Laura video in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago. And then I'm going to be working on the Raspberry Pi 5, right? We're on the 5? Yes. So one of the best performing videos I ever had on Nullbyte was setting up your Raspberry Pi as a hacking platform or setting it up with Kali Linux. I think it's time to update that. It's been a really long time, and maybe making some suggestions on accessories like wireless network adapters as well might be something people want. So if you know what you would want on my first Nullbyte episode, again, I'm pretty set on making it about the new Raspberry Pi and using it as a hacking platform. So many people have been doing this for such a long time that it feels worthy of mentioning it, but also times have changed, it's definitely not the cheap tool that it used to be. And some of the configurations of the new Raspberry Pi are a little bit pricey and on par with the ThinkPads that I get off of eBay that are pretty capable machines that I don't mind trashing the same way that I used to not mind trashing Raspberry Pi. So I guess we'll see whether or not the new episode is as popular as the old ones, given that times have changed. But I feel like now that it's a more capable hacking tool, you're not making as many compromises, because when I reviewed the Raspberry Pi Zero W, the amount of things it could actually successfully do without choking was relatively small when it comes to the things that are pre-installed on Kali that you might want to try. So yeah, coming back soon, and look forward to that episode. I'm hoping we're going to wrap by the end of the month, and then by the beginning of next month, you may see a debut on Nullbyte. But here's the thing. What do I say? On a channel that I haven't been live for 4 years, what am I surprise? It seems like I got to do something. So if you have any ideas for how we should come back on the air, I think that even though I'm focusing on just making a really great episode, I think we need to do something funny, or we at least need to set things off with a little bit of a bang. So if you have ideas for ways we could intro the first Nullbyte episode in 4 years, then please let me know. I'm hunting for ideas. Let's see. All right, here's a question. I recently discovered that music could be transferred via lasers. I'm curious if various other signals could be sent in a similar manner to potentially jam a single device. So optical transmission, basically lasers are in my view, and kind of my extension is basically fiber optics without the wire, right? You're basically sending information via light in a point-to-point manner, and you're trying to make it so that you can have very, very high data rates, and you can transfer all sorts of information. So these sorts of signals can be either really a super narrow beam, or they can be kind of broader and then transferred in a way that's maybe, I don't know, available over a wider area. But I don't specifically work in this area, but I can make some common assumptions. And one of them would be that if you were to shine another laser or some other bright wavelength and interfere with the receiver, then it would be really difficult for them to be able to receive a normal signal. Now that could be solved in a number of ways, like making an aperture or making something that's able to be set far enough back that any light coming in at an angle other than the one you're expecting is not counted or isn't allowed to interfere. But I think that there's some ways you could probably do that. Again, I'm not an optics person. I just know about communications. And in general, the methods of jamming that we currently have would work just the same against this sort of connection. But in a narrow beam sort of connection like that, the countermeasures might be able to make it so that only a certain angle of light is received, unless you're able to just fluoresce the lens and make it so that it's not able to receive anything at all. But again, I think that most traditional jamming would work just the same on a system like this. Let's see. Speculation as to what the next Nullbyte video is going to be. Yes, I'm very unpredictable. I've already asked to change the subject of the first Nullbyte video multiple times. Originally, I believe that I was going to do an open source investigation on how to disable those Boston Dynamics robot dogs. So basically like presented as like a guide for like how to use open source information to learn enough information to kill like a robot dog that's coming to get you. I thought it would be useful. You know, I basically wanted to do something nice for the next generation. But it turns out that doing a bunch of hyper-specific research on a real company and their actual product was not, we decided to go a different direction. So I've already changed my mind multiple times. I could change it again if somebody has a really good suggestion on a first episode. Let's see. Have you seen people controlling smart assistants like Alexa using a laser? Yeah, so there's this really interesting property of microphones, a specific type of microphone that's really common in like current electronic devices, where if you shine a laser at it, it will actually register that as sound. It's really weird. It's like these Electroset microphones like have this strange property where if you hit them directly with the laser and like send wavelengths, it will interpret that as a sound and process it as such. So that means that you can theoretically shine a laser at the speaker, and if you're able to hit it, then varying the frequency on that laser will actually make it sound like you're to the speaker anyway, like you're whispering to that device, which is really strange. But it's just like a property of the type of technology that's used in those particular speakers. So I just think it's really interesting that yes, you actually are able to engage some Alexa and other home assistant devices by shining a like a laser at the speaker and then varying the wavelength. Also, hello, Tai Kwang Gong. Nice of you to join us. We still have plenty of time, so you made it to the stream on time today. Or rather, I started on time today. Let's see. All right, we have a lot of comments. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling up, and that's kind of nice, honestly. Have you researched the new Wi-Fi Windows Wi-Fi driver vulnerability CVE? No, I haven't. I've seen it, and I was going to cover it on the stream, but I have not actually researched it yet. Let's see. All right. Here's one of the many questions for you. Do you have anything to say to those who have rough backgrounds but want to be on the good guy side, asking for a friend? Yes. So I would say refer to my friend Marcus, who, aka Malware Tech, who became well known for helping out. He like helped to sinkhole the WannaCry attack and made it so that that didn't go on to damage like lots and lots of other computers, and basically prevented a ton of collateral damage and really did the world a service. He then subsequently was arrested by the FBI for previously allegedly making or having a role in making banking malware. So like having a rough past and then stepping forward to contribute is obviously intimidating. Like when you have the spotlight thrown on you, it might cause things to become more difficult. But I would say, like, in most cases, if you're sincerely trying to help people and you are using your skills for good, back when I worked for Nullbyte, I had an open call for writers and people who wanted to basically, make educational guides. And a lot of the people who came to me were just like people from the darknet who knew a lot about how to like create things, knew a lot about how hackers operated, but they wanted a real job. Like they didn't want to be putting themselves at risk, using skills that they knew could pay them elsewhere. So they got sick of, participating in darknet activities. And instead they decided to become writers. And like their resumes were some of the most terrifying things that I've ever had to read. They were all like hosted on some darknet site. So I had to connect to Tor just to read their stupid resume. And they were always like flexing by like making like custom darknet like websites to like host all the different examples of their work. Like all their blogs were like published like exclusively on darknet. And I'm like, can you just stop and just send me like a normal resume? But that's okay. Like they went on to be some of my best writers, and they also ended up just being incredibly brilliant and got snapped up as soon as they started going to hacker conferences and meeting people who wanted to hire people with those skills. So, provided you haven't ransomware to hospital or, done anything else that's going to set law enforcement like after you forever, in which case perhaps like find a nice beach somewhere to retire to. Aside from that, I would say that if you have good knowledge of the ways that some of these things work and you want to start contributing to the community, those contributions are also very valuable. And often a lot of people are willing to, maybe look past like where those original contributions came from, provided you are staying on the straight and narrow and not kind of playing both sides. I think that if you keep going back and forth at a certain point, that's where things start to get questionable. But again, that's just my own personal opinion. I think that we need more people with skills, and like the technology is available to people at such an early age nowadays that sometimes like, you do some stuff before you realize how serious it is. And then you wonder whether or not that's going to impact your ability to contribute later on, or whether you should just lie low. The choice is really yours. But in most cases, I would say making contributions is the first way to make sure people know your intentions. And in a community of people who go by actions and trust people based on what they do, not necessarily what they say, making contributions and trying to better the space is really how you prove to people that that's what you want to do now. So kind of a long answer, but I've hired a lot of people who were like very, very nervous to get their first job in cybersecurity because they came from a background where they were basically just experts in setting up like darknet infrastructure. I was like, write a blog about it, I'll pay you. So there are a lot of different career opportunities out there where you can get started like doing that sort of thing. A lot of them don't pay great, but that's the problem with going legit. You make a lot less money for a lot more time than you're used to, but you also get to sleep well at night. The choice is yours. I was thinking of making a small Tachikoma for some cyber conference just for fun with tracking facial recognition. Please do that. I really enjoy those from Ghost in the Shell. I think they're cute. My friend hates them, but I think that they're pretty cute. So if you don't know, those are like little like AI tanks that like have personalities and like little girl anime voices for some reason in Ghost in the Shell. Yes, vivid flashing lights and C matrix is what we hackers are known for. Well, we certainly do. We certainly do love to make a nice blinking thing of many types. Time to add Tetris to that bad boy. Yes, I think that doing all sorts of stuff on the screen would be possible. I don't know how much energy I have to make something this big. I think this is crazy and would take me too long, but maybe something like this, like hosted on a foam core board, would be enough to create a display. I really just want to make sure I can put interesting things on it. So I'm going to dig into this a little bit more, but I just have to give a shout out to BitLooney for being the undisputed ping pong ball wall king of the internet here, where like a lot of these, he's just like keeps making them. He keeps making them crazier and crazier. This V3 in particular just like snaps together in ways that are very modular and cool. And he made like a PCB where you can kind of like plug them in different configurations. And I just have to say, like, it's such a cool idea. I lack the time, dedication, or attention to detail to fully execute on a vision like this. But I have to say, if you're interested in some incredibly cool projects where people have taken just materials and made stuff out of it, this is really high on my list. And I'll be making my own version. So stay tuned to see if I get Tetris running on it. Maybe someone will get Doom running on it. That would be cool. Let's see. All right, so some other things that I wanted to show off. I've got a number of them. I wanted to mention some of our European friends are sounding the alarm. Not about that. Not about that. Not about that either. About like this new version of chat control. Like we've talked about this client-side scanning and this kind of thing where like it's trying to make it a legally mandated part of technology that's sending messages to scan those messages ahead of time for potentially prohibited content. This is often marketed as like child protection stuff, but in fact, it creates a layer between end-to-end encryption that governments have been wanting for a very long time. And this push has been going on, again, as long as secure communications have existed. The desire to implant backdoors to make it fundamentally impossible for the average person to use this technology, or basically making it sound like this sort of math that keeps messages secure is like an existential threat, is, in my opinion, pretty silly. But this keeps coming up over and over again in the European Union. It keeps getting struck down, but it's kind of frightening to see this emerge as prominently in, a block of countries that traditionally has a lot of safeguards on technology. Like, I'm all for some of the like safeguards that like GDPR and stuff that have made it harder for companies to breach your data because they can't hoard it as well or as much without getting penalized. I think that's really great. But some of these other initiatives to make it so that private citizens don't have access to like fundamental privacy or trying to like outlaw the type of encryption that makes it possible for people to communicate securely. I think that most people agree that that's not a good use of their time. So this has been getting a lot of attention. Again, it keeps coming up over and over and again. And if you're in Europe, I would say it's probably an issue you should be very concerned about if you want to make sure that there's not a layer of government surveillance basically mandated into every product that is available to EU citizens that offers private communication. Basically, if you want to have a private conversation between another person in the EU on a digital platform, then you should probably be aware of this. All right. Got a couple other things to show off. So I complained to this about this, I think both last week and then again on Twitter. And what's funny to me is I like posted this on Mastodon and I was just like, yeah, this sucks. And then some guy was just like, good. I'm just like, who likes this? Are you an insurance agent? But I was just puzzled by the response I got to this article. But most vehicles are, especially like newer vehicles that are sold with telematics, like on by default, are collecting information about you, but a lot of them are also tying that information to you and potentially making it so that you could get higher insurance rates in the future. This is a further evolution of that, where apps as well that are purporting to track your gas mileage or other things are actually ratting you out to services that then kind of like tip off insurance companies to help them raise your rates if they think that you are doing things that they don't like. And that could be, you know, ridiculous things. Like we've seen insurance companies try to raise rates for people just doing like normal things they have to do based on their commute. So in most cases, the way that you drive on a day-to-day basis is not your insurance company's business, but they're finding ways to make it their business, both through connected cars and also through apps that sell that information. Now, a lot of these times, the terms of service actually bury that, and you might not be aware that you know, they are making a profit off of your driving data. But these companies like want to make as much information available for sale as possible. So anything that they can do, these companies being Gas Buddy, My Radar, and Life 360, to sell that information, they kind of have been doing. So this comes back to harm the consumer, because if you're using these apps, you're probably not aware that they could come back to actually increase your rates. And if you were aware that installing an app could have a negative impact on what you pay for your car insurance, you probably wouldn't install them, even if you are trying to keep track of your gas. So yeah, I would just say we live in an increasingly connected world when it comes to where data goes. And as I mentioned earlier, while citizens in the EU might have some protection against companies hoarding your data, in the United States, we don't really have that. So there's often large data breaches, which will award you free credit monitoring, which you probably already have multiple times over. But that doesn't really help if those people are going after other things. You know, they have lots of information about you. They can call, they can phish. And as AI tools get better, it makes automated phishing even more likely based on the data that's already out there. So adding more data to that mix through these companies trying to make a profit off of your driving data just sucks. And I thought that this was bad, but according to the one guy in Mastodon, good. All right. So I about mass surveillance in the form of ALPR, which is automated license plate readers. This was first revealed to me after I did like a report in community college on surveillance platforms. And the same day I saw a pickup truck driving through the student parking lot with a bunch of cameras coming out of the back of the bed, which was down, facing towards all the license plates. And I realized that that was a data broker. And they were basically driving around and recording student license plates and selling them to repo companies or networks of like repo bounty hunters who would come and immediately tow the car in order to collect a bounty. So I had no idea that like this level of surveillance had become so popular that it was now like privatized, where a guy in like a specialized rig was like driving around and, you know, like making this data available to people who really, really wanted information about who was parked at the Pasadena City College student parking lot. Probably because a disproportionate amount of students had not paid their like loans on their car. So I don't really like this kind of surveillance. And the problem is, as the information starts to be collected and then potentially leaked, your driving history, basically everywhere you've been, everywhere you've parked, where you were at any particular time in your vehicle, is potentially available to anyone who wants to look for it. So if you have somebody who would be interested in stalking you, if you have an ex-partner who is looking for you, that means that it would be really easy to go back and potentially piece together your movements through the data that's being collected and not adequately secured. So we have not only private companies that are collecting and selling this information, but we also have law enforcement that is collecting it at scale. And a lot of police vehicles now will have these cameras connected to them that do things like make sure that a car isn't stolen, but also just collect the location of all the vehicles around them so that they can trace that back and put it together into a cohesive framework of where that vehicle's been. In a lot of cities, license plates will be recorded at traffic intersections, and it makes basically a network where every vehicle driving through the city is tracked all the way through, and everything they do can be pieced together if they are ever flagged or if that license plate is ever flagged. Now, the problem is that that information is shared nationwide with other police agencies in networks that are more akin to Facebook than they are to any sort of secure platform. So a lot of the time, like some random police officer on the other side of the country could request information from that system for completely unrelated reasons. They could have a personal grudge. It could be their spouse. They could potentially, and they have in the past, requested access to that information for personal reasons and used it for things other than police investigations. And this information has also been breached and it's been sold. So access to that level of granular surveillance over a person's movement, especially in a city that is very car bound, like Los Angeles, for example, is a big deal. And you should be aware that you can no longer just, drive around in a city and expect that you are not being watched all the time that you are going through a traffic intersection that is using one of these automated license plate readers, or anytime you drive by a police officer who has one of these cameras installed on their car. Your location has been permanently recorded and will probably be shared and possibly even breached in the future. Some other thing to worry about, I guess, not only all the things that you yourself put out into the universe as far as data to worry about, but also the massive amounts of information that are being collected both privately by, for example, malls, but also by police agencies who are scanning license plates and then selling that information. And yes, malls have also been implicated in installing these cameras and monetizing their parking lots by selling the data to anybody who's interested. This could be law enforcement, and it's also been immigration. So a lot of really weird places that this data is going, and it's becoming increasingly popular to harvest this. So if you don't think that some like a dash cam company hasn't thought to scan this data automatically and sell it to law enforcement, it's happened. It's happened and probably happening. The crowdsourcing of the system is really the only step that's yet to happen. But being able to pull from people's Ring cameras or dash camera uploads to scan through this data and place people at certain places at certain times is going to be incredibly useful for all sorts of people. So expect license plate capture to be a major topic of surveillance pretty much from now on. It already has been for a while, but the amount of data that's being collected here and how poorly it's being secured is really a topic that not a lot of people have explored. But yes, in most American cities, you're being watched all the time, especially while driving, and that location doesn't go away, and it's accessible to probably more people than you think. All right, so apparently this is nothing new in Sweden. At most parking spaces, your registration is red when entering and leaving, and that's how you pay. I mean, I would say if you're already living in like a quiet surveillance state that's like recording this information, making it generally for sale, like the Chinese model of that is just like make it so convenient that you have to use it. Otherwise, it's too inconvenient to participate in society. Like I would say, like if you're already recording the data, and you're already committed to like tracking all the vehicles in the city, and that's your stated goal, and like your citizens are cool with that, and it's fine, then you might as well make that process, convenient. If that information is stored permanently, or if it's stored in a way that's unnecessary and, for example, used to sell you advertising or like raise your health insurance rates because like you're going to a medical clinic that specializes in an expensive disease, that's where I would start to say, maybe I would not appreciate my parking space automatically paying for itself. And I would rather maybe just like, pay with quarters. Like if it's going to make me like have my health insurance get canceled because I'm going to like a diabetic clinic or something, that would be my biggest concern is like in the free market, we always find ways to optimize based on the data that's out there. So the more data you create, especially if that data is breached or being sold openly, as we do in the United States, then potentially we're creating a circumstance where people become the victims of their own data and they're not able to have any control over what happens after that data gets out. So yeah, sounds convenient, but I don't know if I would want that here. Infrared lights on your plates would be a good countermeasure to that. Yes, depends. So in daylight conditions, most automated license plate readers that police have mounted and that are mounted on vehicle poles will be using their daylight cameras. So infrared wouldn't show up as anything. So at night, you would probably be correct. If you're using an infrared camera and it was just blown out, or if it was like super reflective or some other things, you might be able to get away with that. However, I suspect that it would be the same way as getting caught like with something that makes it so that your license plate can't be read by a speed camera, right? Like you're clearly trying to evade like a fine or something that is like a law enforcement option. So they might have some questions about that. And the same things that would be effective against like an infrared like automatic license plate reader would also probably be effective against a speed camera. So like you could try something like that, but my concern would be like you might look like you're trying to do something more illegal than you anticipate. Like merely opting out of passive surveillance, like I think that that's something that everyone should be able to do. So like that I absolutely support. I just don't want to give you that advice and have you get pulled over and get a fine for like evading speed traps because like other people in your area are using the same techniques for doing that, because there's a lot of, I think, overlap there. Let's see. Okay, so somebody wants to build a quantum computer. I don't know anything about that. Let's just say that my my expertise is in like gadgets and Wi-Fi hacking and OSINT, and not necessarily in creating quantum computers. I do wish you luck, and if you would like to build a coalition, I am happy to advise on maybe like what to point it at first. If my insurance will implement that and track me, they will quickly have a heart attack. Yeah, I just realized, like, in reading all this, that I have probably raised my insurance rates substantially through all the abuse I put my rental cars through in ways that were not immediately obvious to me. So I think one of the reasons I'm salty about this is like, yes, I've probably already raised my own insurance rates just by treating rental cars poorly. Let's see. There is a reason we don't have quantum computers available to buy yet. Yeah, I would say they're expensive and it's really hard to get things to almost absolute zero. Okay, so here's a question. Can you teach us how to build a Pagi drone? So I'm just going to pull up a Pagi just so we can visualize this. All right, so Pagi is a little e-ink reader style Tamagotchi thing that is based on a Raspberry Pi Zero W, I believe. And the reason why this is able to do a lot of the things that it does is because it's able to run Linux and do, I believe, some machine learning and cool stuff that makes it better and better as it runs. It says that it eats WPA handshakes. And the idea would be that you can use it to gather WPA handshakes, and you can then go home, crack them, and potentially find some available Wi-Fi networks with poor security. So it's kind of like an augmentation tool where you just kind of leave it on, it does its things, and it consumes Wi-Fi networks. I honestly really love this thing. The only difference is like it has become a lot more expensive to source Raspberry Pi Zero Ws, and I've gone more over to microcontrollers recently because this made a lot of sense back when it first came out, and it was really easy to make them, and then kind of got more expensive and difficult, and started competing with more expensive devices that were also able to run Linux and maybe have a little bit more power behind it. So I really do like this project, and hoisting it underneath a drone seems absolutely like a good idea. Like I literally think though that I would just build one and then, you know, strap it with a rubber band to the underside of my drone and fly it around. But if you guys want to see that, I'll do it. It sounds cool, honestly. I don't remember if this has GPS, but if I was designing plugins for it, I sure would. GPS.py. Okay, well, that answers my question almost instantly. So yeah, looks like I can add a GPS to do war driving and some other cool stuff. I am super interested in this. So if you guys are really interested in the Pagi, it's one of the tools I haven't really covered, just because like I felt like it was feeling a weird niche for a while. But Raspberry Pi Zero Ws have gotten cheap again, so I would be totally up to cover this one again. Let's see. Okay, so we have some endorsement for Ponagachi. Used to hack my school's Wi-Fi, says an anonymous person who heard this from a friend. Yes, you didn't use it to hack your school's Wi-Fi, but someone you know did. Yeah, most of the time Wi-Fi networks are really weakly secured, and a lot of people will use either phone numbers or other like really common like things that they'll remember easily to secure them. So these little like hacking, almost hacking toys, I would describe them as, are simple enough that you can just turn them on and let them do their thing. But once you know the simple process of trying to like break a Wi-Fi password, you would obviously like take all the hashes that this gathers, put them onto a more capable computer and do the brute forcing there, or use like a distributed hash cracker or something like that to get results more quickly. I would not trust this to try to brute force the passwords unless it's trying a very short list, which, would be relatively efficient. Like if you have like a list that you really like that has a high level of efficacy. But for the most part, a little device like this isn't going to be possible isn't going to be capable of actually like breaking the password itself. It's going to need to gather information and refer it higher up to a computer with a bit more capability. So here's a question. As a side note on the drone concept, is there a way to automate drones to follow you? Maybe some sort of beacon. Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that I've seen getting drones to follow you. Most of them are based on like visual cues. So machine like learning and image processing is fairly good to the point that like a lot of drones have built-in software where you can select something and have it either like make a circle around it or either make a circle around it or track it as it moves. If you're building a drone from scratch or you're trying to do something like that, then it becomes a little bit more difficult, obviously. But we did an episode where we basically did signal hunting, and we strapped like a receiver to the bottom, like a war driver to the bottom of a drone, and flew around, and we're able to get a spike in signal strength from a particular Android device. So being able to like build something that is able to sense a signal strength and try to move closer to it, like probably wouldn't be too difficult, especially if you had a directional antenna. But it would be a little sloppy. Like, that would be like if the drone was blind and had to just go on the strength of a signal and was constantly like flying around kind of seeking it. So yeah, like you could definitely build something that seeks out a signal and then like have it kind of flying in a pattern that like it's always seeking out the strongest signal. But I would say most drones nowadays do have like the ability to visually lock onto something, and that makes it a lot easier for you to work on those sorts of projects. Let's see. Yes, I still don't know how this quantum computer is going to work out in the chat, but I do wish you the best on making it. Okay, crazy drone carrier pigeon idea. Yeah, like I think that like especially FPV drones can have all sorts of like interesting stuff mounted to them, and they have more open software than a lot of the higher end like cinema drones. So being able to like add like a radio antenna that is like maybe having the drone seek it out or something like that seems like something on a custom build that might be easier to do. I've only worked on one so far, and it is very difficult to fly. So I have not even gotten to that level yet. Okay, so I think that is most of what I have to cover today. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Discord server. I have been posting some of the content that I've been working on there, getting some feedback on it. And one of the things that I did recently that Pablo mentioned was extending the range of the Nugget to a couple miles. So I, in a video on the Reddit channel, released a guide on how to use CircuitPython. Oh, wait, let me hide this. Released a guide on how to use CircuitPython to basically do a bad USB attack from like a mile or more away. So I've been working on this a little further, and this is where anybody who's got some LoRa experience maybe can set me straight on this. So when working with this protocol, and this is the custom version we did that has also a GPS attached to it so I can do like signal tracking, there's a number of different factors you can affect. One of them is going to be like signal strength, but another one is spread factor. And that's something that allows more of the signal to take up the available bandwidth and basically makes it so you can get further range and take up all at the expense of transmitting a lot more slowly. Now, I'm trying to do some of these range tests where I just want to see the absolute limit, but there's about a mile hard cutoff on the setup that I have right now. And for whatever reason, with CircuitPython, there's a bug where if you change any of the settings for the spread factor from default, no matter what it is, it will not work. So I went ahead and ported everything over to Arduino, which was really fun. And I managed to get it so that the two devices were communicating, but I am getting even worse signal strength. Same setup, but it's as though I don't have an antenna on at all. I'm very confused. So I'm still continuing to try to extend this even further. And so far, the best range that we've got was about 3 miles or so. So this is still an accurate statement, but I'm able to get my Meshtastic device to communicate over, let's just say like 20 miles or more. So I'm a little confused as to why I'm still getting this hard cutoff. And I'm also frustrated that CircuitPython doesn't let me write really simple code to test this out. Definitely a bug that I'm going to be reporting. But yeah, Arduino also seems to be having its own interesting set of issues. So while I have extended the range of the Nugget at least a couple of miles, I'm not satisfied. And I'm definitely trying to work this week to find out if there's ways I can extend this before we get to the conference. The idea, of course, being at the conference, or at the camp rather, I'm going to be putting this at the top of a pole, connecting it to a big sign and having a ticker kind of like spell out what people are saying or sending, and then also letting people control the color of the lights at our camp by sending hex color values to a LoRa address. So lots of interesting stuff going on with extending range in LoRa. And I just wanted to shout out everybody who has been dropping some interesting comments and questions in the Discord server. I do read it. And of course, I do try to shout it out on the show whenever I get a chance. Okay, so I think that is just about, oh, yes, electrical interference in the device. So we have a pretty good engineer who's been working on this particular design for a while and has eliminated most of the different sources of potential interference. Like, I'm pretty sure that it's a software issue for whatever reason. My suspicion is just I've had multiple different LoRa backpacks, all of which have been working fine on CircuitPython, just fail on this and not work properly. So I'm interested in seeing how far I can push this technology. Obviously, a 20-mile range on anything is going to change the game for what you can use it for. And I think that if someone able, like, over in Canada was able to change the lights at our camp over, on Orcas Island, like that would be pretty cool. But we'll see. I am investigating and interested in all the ways I can optimize the antenna. And my current idea is to actually put the Meshtastic antenna onto this device. So I'm going to try that out, see if that improves the range at all, and report back soon. So that is all the time I have on today's stream. And yes, don't worry, I will be checking out Blunderbuss and seeing if I can do some more WPA3 vulnerability discussions. Now that I have a tool and a target, seems like it would be a lot easier to cover this than potentially other things that require me to maybe backdoor my computer by accident. So I'm going to give this tool a try. Hopefully I'll be able to report back on it by next time, but I'm going to be at Tour Camp starting next week. So Friday is going to be my last stream, as I will probably be traveling on that next Wednesday. Actually, no, I'll be setting up a tent on an island and getting rained on. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop them on the YouTube channel before Friday, because that is going to be my last stream this week until Tour Camp. So I'll try to go live, but I'm also going to be recording lots of content at Tour Camp. It's going to be super fun. And if you're going to be there, please let me know. I'm going to be bringing a lot of stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to teach a lot of fun workshops there and at the night market. So as always, if you appreciate the stream, if you want to keep it going, check out varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. It lets everyone know that you appreciate the stream. You want us to keep doing it twice a week, every week, and it doesn't cost you anything to let them know you care. I will see everyone on Friday, where we go over the hacker news of the week with my friend Killian. And we've got a lot of stuff already to talk about, including this weird European chat control surveillance bill that keeps popping up over and over. So if you have anything that you think should be on the stream, feel free to jump in the Discord server and let us know, or leave it as a comment on the YouTube channel, and I'll make sure to cover it on the news stream. All right. Thank you to all the 114 people in the chat right now. There's a lot of you. I will see all of you on Friday, and then maybe I'll see some of you coming up at Tour Camp. Goodbye, everyone.